Okay, now that I have an EU passport, would I settle down in Europe? Would I have a family in Europe? And that depends on a lot of things. First of all, I'm single, so I don't even have a girlfriend. So I think at least half of that decision would depend on where she was from and whether she was willing to live in Europe or whether she was from Europe in the first place. But let's consider like my wife, my supposed imaginary future wife just goes with everything that like I say and that I have to make that decision for us as a couple. Would I live in Europe? Like, would I have, not just live in Europe, like, would I have a family in Europe? That's something that's a little bit harder for me to say because I am particularly attracted to the American vibe of big, large suburbs with like a significantly large house where your kids playing in the backyard and you I don't really mind driving cars because that's something that people say a lot about Europe. It's like, oh, you don't need to drive a car, and I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like driving a car, you know. So it's something that I would have to consider. Safety is definitely a big one when you're raising kids, and like honestly, I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. Americans, they are scared of going to Mexico. They're very scared of going to Brazil. They're scared of going to Latin America in general, but I think they're very scared of, especially Brazil. They have like an image with Brazil and all that. But like America has almost as many cities on like the top level dangerous cities as Brazil does. Like if you go to Detroit, if you go to Chicago, if you go to like high level crime cities in the US, some of them are worse than Rio. Not figuratively, no, statistically, they're worse than Rio. There's more murder there per thousand people than there are in Rio. So that's a lot of murder. That's a lot of like violence, and that's definitely something that would like kind of take me back a little bit with the U.S. Also, how politicized the U.S. is, because there's a lot of politicized countries. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think any of them are as politicized as America. So there is a negative for America, but then you could argue that you could go to like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, that also kind of give more of that suburban vibe that America does, but they don't have the same problems as America. But then the problem with those, well, the problem with Canada is really cold, like most of the year, most of the time. The problem with Australia is it's amazing, but it's far away. Like it's so far, like from everything. I can't talk to my friends. All my friends are either on a time zone that's 13-hour difference from me or 8/9 hour difference from me, and that bugs my mind. Like right now, as I'm speaking, I am on a Sunday, and all of my friends are still on Saturday. It's weird. It's kind of hard to have family so far away, have friends so far away. So it definitely is a little bit complicated. And then Europe obviously solves that because Europe is right in the middle. It's not too far from anything. I mean, Europe location wise is hard to beat. And so also has some very low crime rates. Even in Italy, like you would expect Italy to have somewhat of a higher crime rate, but not at all. Like Italy is literally on pair with Switzerland on murder rate level. It's insane. It's very low. So would I live in Europe? Maybe. Would I have a family in Europe? Maybe. I would consider, like, Switzerland, for example, is a country that kind of speaks to me in a way. It's a little bit more romanticized in my mind. The UK also. The UK is kind of romanticized in my mind. I don't know if it's because I lived there or if it's. I mean, I think the nature there is very nice. I think the people are very nice, and I really liked London. I liked London. I like other cities as well. The city I lived in specifically was Lancaster, which is up north and west, kind of near like Liverpool kind of thing. So I would consider the UK. Ireland is it's like you get the weather of the UK, but it's a little bit worse. And then you don't have London, which is like that kind of vibe. So maybe Ireland, but I wouldn't be sure. I mean, I talk about Ireland a lot, and people would assume, oh no, you love Ireland, right? Because you all the time you're talking about how Ireland is the only country in the EU that still has access to the UK, and that's true. Like from a passport point, it's better to have an Irish passport, but like, who cares? You're living in a place, like it doesn't really matter. Like, so would Ireland be the one place I want to have a family in? I don't know, maybe not. I think I would highly consider Switzerland. I would possibly consider Austria. I love Vienna. That's also something I've said in a lot of videos. And yeah, I loved Vienna. I was there like more than once, and for fairly extended periods of time comparatively, and it's just such a good vibes city. I think I would have a family in Vienna. I hear taxes are terrible though, so that might be a consideration. But I don't make any money right now, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think I could live in Europe, in Switzerland, in Austria, in the UK. Those I think would be the top countries I would consider for having a family. But I would still tilt towards the US. Good places in the US, of course, or maybe even Australia. Like if I start making friends in Australia, then all of a sudden they're all in the same uh, time zone as me, so it doesn't really matter, right? So yeah, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see.